All right, and we are live. Welcome everyone to Narrations and Lamentations with Mittierim and the boys. I am Mittierim, and with me as always are the boys, Skip and Michael. And
Hello.
here we are going to have another one of our army-themed shows tonight, and representing our Bretonnia expert, we have Anthony from the TheSustainableCenter. Not that I imagine that any of my subscribers aren't also yours, but if you'd like to go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm going to pretend to know the lore of Bretonnia for this evening.
Okay, good enough. So before we get started, as YouTube is giving me all sorts of crazy pop-ups here, I did want to say a thank you to our last expert, Lord Tremendous. He was with us for Warriors of Chaos, and I mentioned that I didn't have enough I didn't have any chariots, and I really love chariots, and just didn't have the wherewithal at the moment to get any. So he sent me one of his modified Warriors of Chaos chariots with this big giant Viking Earth Elemental Gene Simmons on the back of it. So I thank you very much for that. I'm definitely going to paint this up as best as I can. And I really don't have it in me just to make a chariot out of this. This is going to be a character, and I'm going to have some fluff come up for it. So definitely keep an eye out for that, Lord T, and thank you again. So let's go ahead and get started just kind of talking about what folks are doing in the hobby this week. Ant, you're our guest, so what you got working?
I'm doing a 6 gyro, 2 gyro bomber list for my FLGS tournament next Saturday. So I'm trying to get them all painted up prior to the event. So we'll see if that happens or not.
Nice. How many did you? I know you said you just bought a bunch of them. How many did you have before that?
I had 5 gyros, so I had to buy 1 regular gyro and 2 bombers. So,
that's not too bad.
No, it's not too bad, but only 2 of them are painted, so I've got 6 more to go.
Well, that changes things, doesn't it?
Yeah.
All right, Michael, what you been up to?
Elves. So many elves. There's so many of them. It's like I finish 1 and then I find 20 more of them. So, okay, well, that's my evening gone.
All right, and Skip?
I am actually doing dwarves. So that is what I've been working on. I have 5 of 30 done so far.
Awesome. Congratulations. Mm-hmm. And I am still working through Warriors of Chaos. I did get my 15 Tzeentch Warriors done, so now I think probably this chariot from Lord Tremendous is going to take precedence, but I'm going to do that, and the Chimera I think is going to be next on my list. But we're not here to talk about what we're doing in the hobby. We're here to discuss Bretonnia. So those of you who haven't seen the show before, what we're going to do is our panel is going to go through and rate the army of Bretonnia in terms of mechanics, fluff, and fun on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the most amazing thing you've ever seen and 1 being terrible and you want to set the book on fire. So we'll kind of chat. We got just a huge amount of questions from folks. So we're going to kind of go into this like that. So Anthony, as our guest, go ahead and let's hear what your ratings are in terms of mechanics, fluff, and fun.
Yeah, this is tough. So I would give mechanics a 7. I would give the fluff, I guess, a 7 as well. And then fun, I would give the army more of a... I'd give it a 7 again. I think it's pretty much 7s across the board.
Okay. So just an above-average army across the line, huh?
Yeah, this is my opinion.
Okay. So Michael, what you got for your ratings?
Mechanic-wise, probably a 6, as when they work, they do really well when they're working together. When they fail, there's not a lot of room for any changing the plan. It's you failed, you lost. Fun-wise, it's probably about an 8 or 9 when I'm playing against Skip. I don't get to play them that often, but it's a lot of fun. And For the fluff, I don't ever get to really read a lot of it, but from what I've seen, that's going to get an 8.
Okay. Any particular reason? That's kind of a high rating out of you.
Mainly because the other night we came over and Skip was telling, his whole rant about the king being dead, and then that look on his face when we found out that wasn't true. that was beautiful.
All right. So, Skip, as our other Bretonnian player, what's your ratings?
I'm going to start off with 10 is fun to play, because I still love putting, my goal now is to put the 100 peasant block down, and I'm almost there. So as far as fun to play, I'm going to go with a 10. Mechanics, I'm going to give it about a 4, because it's definitely needing some updating. It's definitely a challenge to play in some certain situations. As far as the fluff, I was going to give it a little bit higher rating until the other night when we did realize that he did not die. So I'm going to give it back to about a 4.
Well, you do have to finish reading the Glotkin book, though, because he does die again at the end of the Glotkin.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay.
No, don't get your hopes up, Skip. He will come back.
Your hopes aren't dashed yet.
Okay.
All right. So for me, I actually am gonna, I think, kind of land in the middle of you guys in terms of mechanics. I'm gonna give them a 5, and reason I'm doing that is, yeah, they are relying on the charge. The main problem is they just don't have any real ability. With the number of models you have in the units anymore, you need to have something, and they just don't have it. Fluff, I'm gonna give it a 6. And I'll call that a 6 with promise, because I like their history. I like a lot of the fluff, but I think they really miss the boat in terms of special characters. There's really not very many of them. They're kind of bleh. And I really think with an army that's so much based upon, like, individual chivalry and courage and great acts, they really had the opportunity to do some great characters and just kind of left it on the side of the road. Now, fun, I'm going to rate that as a 9. I've had fun pretty much every time I've played against Bretonnia. I mean, it's a great style army. I like seeing them on the table, and they're just a blast to play against. So one thing I want to do before we get kind of into some of these questions and talk about it, we do have, with Ant and Skip, we do have 2 different kind of play styles for Bretonnia. So we'll start with Anthony. If you would kind of tell the group kind of how long you've been with Bretonnia and give kind of a description of your sort of typical Bretonnian list that you might bring and play.
So when I started Fantasy, it was Bretonnia. I think that was the tail end of 6th. So whenever that was, and on again, off again until probably 2012, I came back to the hobby with a desire to try. So I'll say 2012 since I was playing them competitively then. And I played Bretonnia the only way I think it can win, which is the Hero Hammer style. So the cheapest lances you can field, as many paladins as you can put in for as cheap as possible. Try to put a Lord on Peg so you can max out the number of Pegasus Knights because they're the best redirectors and fast cav in the game. And then you just try to bubble Savage Beasts and just get a ton of attacks on your characters and crush them through just the sheer awesomeness and power of the characters on the charge.
Okay. Now, in a 180-degree turn from that, Skip, if you'd like to tell us a little bit about your take on Bretonnia and the kind of armies you build and how long you've been playing it, all that fun stuff.
Bretonnia was really the second army I played. I started out with vampire accounts, and then you and I switched, and then I got Bretonnia, and that was about a year ago. So when I first came into the hobby, so that was my really first army that I spent a lot of time with. When I sit down and I design my list, I go off of fluff. Who am I facing? What characters do I want to use? And I build an army around that. For example, for Cartasia, I decided that his honor guard was going to be Grail Knights. Was that a mistake? Yeah. but it fit with what I was doing. So that's kind of the list. And of course, as I just mentioned, I play a very peasant-heavy army. I like the lowborn. I think they have their uses, and I've gotten pretty well at maneuvering them around and setting things up more than I have in the past. So I think that they have their place in the army itself.
Okay. Well, awesome. It's good to kind of get two different points of view on this, and that's kind of why we like having our different experts on. So a couple of questions I just want to get the ball rolling on Bretonnia in general, and then we'll go to the questions other folks asked. One, just, what was it, 3 weeks ago or so, I did my first Mittierim Fixes Warhammer video, and it focused on the Knights of Bretonnia. And overnight, that video got more views and more attention than like my last 3 battle reports combined over the length of their life. So there's definitely a very big interest in Bretonnia and a lot of very loyal Bretonnian players. So what do you guys think? Is it about Bretonnia, whether it's mechanics, fluff, whatever, that draws this love and sort of fanaticism from the people who play Bretonnia?
Well, my first thought when I think of Bretonnia, and it's kind of funny, but I do think of Monty Python and the Holy Grail. That has a cult following in itself, and you can kind of see the similarities a little bit in the Bretonnian army. That's the first thing I thought of when I first started reading the book and looking at it. But I've always been into like the British history and the knights and King Arthur and everything like that, and I think that would draw people towards the Bretonnian society anyway, based on if they're history buffs, kind of like I am, or when it comes to Arthurian history and things like that.
Well, I agree with that as well. I mean, you have the Monty Python for the comical fantasy side of it, with the peasants and the lowborn and the ridiculous tax rate, and then you have the King Arthur chivalrous side on the other side of it. I think the other facet is everyone's naturally drawn more to the human races, I believe. If you look at 40K, Space Marines, Imperial Guard, everyone has a big cult following for those. Empire, everyone has a vibe for Empire. Everyone has the vibe for being a human. And we can all see ourselves being chivalrous knights. I mean, what better faction would you want to be a part of, where you own your own castle, you own your own peasants, you have your own little 40 acres and a mule that you don't have to do anything with, the peasants do all the work, right? That sounds like a really sweet association to be a part of. And in terms of fantasy, Warhammer fantasy, I don't think anything captures the medieval feel more than the Bretonnians, with the men-at-arms and the bowmen and the trebuchets and the knights and the damsel that needs to be rescued, but it's also really badass. I think all that wrapped together gets a really big cult following. I've heard people say they're the Space Marines of fantasy, and I said if only they got that much attention. I think if they could even get like double the attention they get right now, so from like 1 to 2% attention, they could really be that poster child like the Space Marines are in 40K.
So wait, what you're saying is that my steam tank isn't the epitome of medieval warfare?
It's the epitome of steampunk warfare. It looks like it belongs more at home in the Warhammer Hordes battle arena, to be honest, than the fantasy arena.
So what about you, Michael, as a sometimes opponent of the Bretonnians? What do you think draws folks in?
I like Skip and Ant said, I think one of the biggest things that draws you to them is, I mean, with the Empire you've got the steampunk feel, but when you look at Bretonnia, they are straight out knights, peasants, lords. They have a very medieval, real-world feel to them. So I think it's a lot easier for people to just come in and relate to an army like that, where they can go, yeah, I've seen knights in battle, I've seen this on TV, and it gives them a little easier transition from the normal world into gaming.
I can see that. So we definitely talk about sort of what draws folks in. What do you guys feel is currently the biggest weakness of the Bretonnian army? The sort of why you're not seeing more folks doing them in either the hobby world or the tournament world. What is that barrier to entry for them that keeps that fan group relatively small?
I think just age. I mean, marketing is king, and Bretonnia is way on the back curve. They've gotten more attention in the End Times books than they've gotten in, the past decade. The book came out in 2004. That was 6th edition. We're now looking at 9th edition. They're just not poster child enough, and GW is always about the new, shiny, flashy. And Bretonnia hasn't been on the front cover in over a decade. So, you know, I think it's just really that more than anything, because they're not a terrible book in terms of options. They're not the most competitive, but I mean, you have cult followings of other armies that are not very competitive either. So I wouldn't stick it just on that alone.
I can see that. I still have very clear memories when I first started playing in high school. The first starter set I got was the old Bretonnians versus Lizardmen set, and I was like, I thought that was awesome, taking knights and beating lizard dudes apart with them. It's like, I think they just need to give them a little bit of punch, get them back in everyone's face again. Anyone else, either you guys have any other thoughts on that as to the stepping or the block?
Well, I mean, you look at it, there's a lot of books most of the books out there has a good heavy set of infantry, and the peasants, whether they're fun to play, they just don't pack a punch. I mean, they're humans, but they have less ability or less skill than their counterparts in the Empire with the halberdiers. I mean, you know, when you're looking at an army like that, and you want something that would be a little bit more competitive and a little bit more infantry based. You don't have that in Bretonnia, whereas you would have that option in Empire if you wanted to go human.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
Oh, yeah. Just a second what Skip said on that. And, I mean, if you look at competitive-wise, they're supposed to be the epic knight army, and, frankly, my high elf knights do their job 100 times better. So,
yeah.
I think the only reason.
I think I'll add.
I was just going to say the only reason that's the case is when the book was written 10 years ago, they were the best cav in the game.
Yeah, no, I agree. They need the update to make them shiny.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'll actually add something else that you're not getting as much bang for the buck. On the other side of that, you have the hobby side. And with kind of the painting schemes that Bretonnia sets up, I think it can be a very imposing army for somebody new getting into the hobby to latch onto. I mean, you see those very detailed pictures in the army book, the White Dwarf, whatever you're seeing it in, that each knight is individually colored with these like amazing X marks and heraldry and all this stuff. And knowing that you've got to come up with kind of different color schemes for every model in the army, for an army that's not going to perform that well on the table, is kind of a 1-2 punch that is rough for Bretonnia to handle, I think.
I think that's the selling point, though, of Bretonnia. I mean, when I look at my Skaven army and I go, I have to paint 200 slaves, that's more daunting to me, even though they're basic and easy to paint, than the 30 to 45 knights I may need to crank out. I mean, they're one of the lowest model count armies in the game, outside of maybe the High Elves or the Empire doing all cav. And each knight you sit down to paint is its own hero. You just get to paint a bunch of heroes. And I remember when I played the skirmish games, I get to sit down and paint each model, and I get to embellish him and make that model whatever I want, and it's a new experience and a fresh experience over time. I think the grind is what kills fantasy. I have to paint 200 of the same guys, whereas each knight you can make his own thing, and out of the Erenin Realm kit, with a couple bits, you can make every character you want. I mean, it's still a really great kit considering how old it is. So.
Perfectly valid counter to that. All right. Well, let's go ahead and start digging into a few of these questions, because God knows we're going to be spending a lot of time on these. You guys really came into a bunch of information for the Bretonnians. So first question actually comes to us from a new fella, Jedkar. His question revolves around the end times. He said that we've seen undead and the Chaos armies come together. There are hints of the elves uniting. Which army do you think Bretonnia will end up with if they're combining everybody? And is there any chance that it'll be dwarves?
God, I hope it's dwarves. Oh, I just want it. That's all I want. Now, that's all I want.
I think it's definitely going to be Empire without a question. That's just the home they belong in. You know, other humans with other humans, and I think what'll survive are just whatever in the current plastic kits. Makes sense.
Fluff-wise, I actually hope they join together with the Wood Elves. Being that they're all kind of in that same area, there's some geographic benefits there. You might bind themselves together to face Chaos or Nagat or
They are
whoever.
allies actually on paper, like legitimately in the fluff.
And so I think to a certain degree that would kind of help boost both armies. I mean, having access to some Bretonnian knights might give Wood Elves a little bit more potential for close combat punch, and some skirmishy tricks and shooting could definitely help the Bretonnians at the moment.
I kind of agree with that, because if you look at the units that Bretonnia already has, I mean, you've got archers, and there you go with the Wood Elves. I mean, you've got cavalry that can shoot. You know, you kind of got that with the men at arms that are mounted. I mean, it would be a natural progression to merge the two armies. I don't think it would be, you know, really out of the ordinary or out, you know, that extreme to do. But I would agree with that.
So let me ask you.
I'm sorry. I think they're probably going to mount them with the Empire.
Right. So let me, since you both think that they're going to mount with the Empire, let me ask kind of a follow-up question to this. We kind of came to the understanding, or at least pseudo-agreement, that right now the Empire Knights are just better. I mean, the one-up armor save, that sort of thing makes them better. If you were playing a combined Empire Bretonnia, what would you take out of Bretonnia that you don't think the Empire could do? What would be your choices for that combination?
I don't think the Knights in the Empire are actually better. I think they're substantially worse. They have the one-up armor save, and that's basically it. They're slower on the hoof. They don't get a ward save. They don't get the lance formation, and the lance formation is the most powerful formation in the game. If you could put high elves, you know, or warriors of Chaos Knights, or anybody into the lance formation, they become god hammers. The only thing that holds Bretonnia back is just their god-awful stats and their high point costs. But I mean, with the lance formation, you could hide all the characters in the second rank and then make way to the front. Heroic killing blow on the characters. That's almost better than the Rune Fang. I mean, that's rivaling Karl Franz. So I would say what you take is everything else in the Empire, and any knights you want, you take Bretonnia.
Okay. Skip, you holding about the same thought?
Yeah, I agree, because I was going to say that the lance formation is the best cavalry formation that's in the game. I mean, and you can see what it's done, especially, you know, when I watched Ann's videos, when you put the three paladins in the front, you know, it's incredible. So why wouldn't you want to take advantage of that? Plus, you get the 6-up war or the 5-up, depending on what you're fighting. So, I mean, that hands down is better than the Knights. I'd take that over a 1-up armor save any day.
Okay, well, I guess then I'm just the only one that thinks Empire Knights are better.
Well, Demigriffs are definitely better. Demigriffs will beat down... I mean, I've put 2 full lances into Demigriffs and lost. On the charge, I've lost them. Demigriffs are the one things that Bretonnians need. If you could throw Bretonnian Knights on Demigriffs, good God, army's fixed right there.
So that's all we need, huh?
That's all we need. That and Inner Circle Knights would be nice, but...
Yeah. All right, so it looks like with this discussion, we actually answered the first 2 of Mitch's MC1 Gamers questions. So we'll kind of skip to number 3 for him. And he asks, could the end times shake up the fluff in the feudal society, where the peasants force free elections, equality, medical marijuana legalization, equal pay for equal work for peasants and women. He says, sorry, to real-world politics. But back to the real question, do you feel like we'll see a peasant spring in Bretonnia where things get shaken up in the fluff, and maybe even as an excuse to kind of repower the peasant units in the game?
The Bretonnian society is set up a lot like the Spartan society, where there's a tremendous amount of peasants, like the Helots, and then you have the few number of Spartans. They've lost so many knights at this point that all that's left are the very young knights, the errant knights, and the squires, which are, squires like a 12-year-old kid, right? And then the absurd amount of peasants. And although peasants die in bucket loads, they seem to be like Skaven. They're almost innumerable in Bretonnia. It's quite a large number. So where the population might have been 90% peasants, 10% knights, now it might be like 2% knights, 98% peasants left, considering the losses. So I could definitely see the peasants, putting on "We're Not Going to Take It" and just blasting that theme song across the whole land.
All right, Skip, you've got a new story to write.
Oh my God, I would just love that.
I think as much as that is kind of a fun idea in concept, I think the only way that it would happen anything like that in the fluff would be if they did finally just permanently merge Bretonnia and the Empire. Because ultimately, where you get kind of the everyman rule is more for the Empire, and I once they blur the lines that much, there's not really a whole lot of reason to keep them separate from a fluff perspective.
Well, you could always just make the men-at-arms the untrained militia, right? I know we have free company militia in the Empire, but what is a man-at-arms other than a guy that carries a lot of equipment but has no idea how to use it? That's what Weapon Skill 2 Initiative 5, Leadership 5 means. They have more equipment than an Empire halberdier, but they cost the same amount because they have all that equipment. But they're terrible troops with terrible morale and terrible weapon skill. So they're like the armed peasant rabble, effectively.
Yeah. So okay, we'll put that as a 50-50 likelihood. So next question. How powerful do you think the lady is in the pantheon of humans and the powerful chaos deities? Is Sigmar even on par with the lady? And could we see a revitalization of the human-centered deities in and after the end times?
Well, something has to happen. I mean, you're looking at a rise in the undead power, and then you're looking at a rise in the chaos power. I mean, they're going to have something to hopefully balance all that out.
Yeah. Let me ask a quick question before we go too deep into this. Have any of you guys finished reading the fluff book from Glotkin?
Well, I'm not going to read it. I'll read the synopsis on Bowls.
Okay.
I haven't finished it yet.
Okay. The reason why I ask is there's actually a pretty good scene from the point of view of the human gods where Tal, the god of nature in the Empire, is being poisoned by the three diseases that Nurgle unleashes. And there's this healing ritual because Shalia, the human or the Empire goddess of healing, is totally failing to heal him. And it says something to the effect of the lady seeing and being moved by the sacrifice of King Leon Kerr decides to help out. And so she joins in, and they start like trying to heal him. And then all of a sudden, it turns winter, and Ulrich, the Empire god of winter, like is strong enough to join in. And so it takes the three of them to purge Nurgle and his plagues from Tal, the god of nature. So the reason I just mentioned that is it does look like they're at least portraying the human deities collectively as being at least a threat to chaos, if not their equals. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out before you guys keep discussing the lady.
Well, it was nice that they even acknowledged Bretonnia had a god, because for a long time it was rumored that maybe it would just be some crazy wood elf, super powerful like chick, because that was always the rumor. She had this very elf appearance about her. They're kind of butt buddies with the wood elves. She spawns out of trees and lakes. Sounds like a wood elf to me. She rides a unicorn. Wood elves ride unicorns because they're ballers. So that's good that they acknowledge her actually as a deity and not just like the super queen of the wood elves. So that's hopeful.
Yeah. And like I said, I think I would love to see more action from the human-centered gods. Because frankly, a pantheon of only 4 deities who actually do much of anything is kind of boring.
Oh, that's boring. Right. I'll forget about the 3 dwarf gods that have done nothing since the first time of chaos.
Didn't one of them Peasant?
Yeah, one of them became Crunch and Munch for Nagash.
Dwarves don't need gods. They have a furnace. They're fine.
We'll make our own god.
Thank you, Ant. Right. Thank you.
All right, so I'll be interested to see where they go from it, particularly now that Carl Franz as Shazam has appeared in the world, and I guess his god lightning bolts might show everyone what Sigmar can do.
Oh.
Okay. So 5th question, I guess this one's a little more serious. If GW did a makeover of Bretonnia and it was not merged with Empire, and there's kind of rumors that the reason why they're kind of pushing Bretonnia to the side is that as sort of generic knights, they're hard for GW to kind of put a trademark on, and so they're dealing with a lot of issues in the other smaller companies. What do you guys think, or would you like Bretonnia to look like and to be like in a more easily trademarkable future version of themselves?
I don't see the whole... I understand the copyright issue with the Bretonnian Knights, but I don't see it being any more of a challenge than dwarves, or elves, or orcs, or Empire humans, which are basically the Holy Roman Empire. Fantasy in general is very hard to trademark compared to 40K. Necrons are pretty unique. Tau is pretty unique. Dwarves, they all live in holes in the ground. They all like gold. The stereotypes continue. Same thing with the elves. So I think fantasy in general has a copyright trademark issue. So I don't see Bretonnia as being that much worse, except Bretonnia also has to deal with the historical side, but so does the Empire. And they don't seem to be stopping the Empire at all. The Empire is one of their bread and butter babies.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of agree. I don't see any real need for them to switch up, although I gotta say, if they went all like Sky Knights on them, it'd be pretty badass. Like, just get rid of the horses altogether, make it like Pegasus, Griffins, Hippogriffs, whatever, and just make them an entirely flying army. That'd be pretty awesome.
That would be definitely different.
I think the Hippogriff is the monster cap that Bretonnia could use. You give it a lower armor save, but you give it, maybe a strength of 5, and you make it like a flying demigriff with wings. But it's not the 1-up armor save because it can't take barding, so maybe it only has like a 3-up like a Pegasus Knight to kind of make it a cheaper version of that, but then you're intruding on the Pegasus Knight's territory, so you got to kind of be careful with that. Yeah. I don't really think they need anything else. I think that's the beauty of Bretonnia, is you don't need to really expand them out too much. What they have right now is pretty good. It's just some rebalancing. I don't really need more kits.
Okay, that's a valid because I think that's the one thing that everybody kind of hits the wall on with Bretonnia is when folks are thinking kind of wish lists and stuff. It's like, what really seems to fit them that they would need? And I think you're right. I think for what they are and to hold their theme and their fluff together, there's not a whole lot of holes to fill.
Well, the other issue is, like, did anybody see the Luminarch and the Hurricanum coming for the Empire? Or even Demigryphs? I mean, they were really left field choices. So, I mean, we may see something really wonky like that for Bretonnia. Something way in left field that no one's thinking about. I mean, I'm not artistic or creative enough to come up with it, but yeah.
Bretonnians riding dragon ogres, and we'll make 2 units decent.
Bretonnians riding baby dragons and have a unit of flying monster cav like that. That'd be cool.
All right, so since we'll keep rolling on this, John Tailby asked a couple of other questions about the future of Bretonnia, so we'll keep rolling on this line. With the new Bretonnian book, do you think the Bretonnians will get their own magic lore based on the lady, and if so, what would it be like?
Didn't they have a lore at one time, or am I just sniffing glue?
No, I don't think they ever really had a lore.
Yeah,
I'll check
the
the old book here, but I don't think they had a lore in the heyday. I don't think they need it. Empire doesn't have its own lore, and Beasts and Life and Heavens and those are all really good lores that complement them. They don't really need their own lore either.
Yeah. I think what might be cool, rather than giving them their own lore, is maybe give them their own lore attribute for a couple of the lores that they have that might play in better to the various night oaths and stuff like that, maybe?
I think the virtues should be like vampiric powers, where you get up to maybe, let's say, 50 points for a lord and 25 points for a hero, or 150, 100 for a lord and 50 for a hero, and they're outside of the equipment costs. Because, as you said, it's all about, if any army should be hero hammer, it should really be the Bretonnians. They're all the ones about the super heroic chivalrous knights that do these really, one knight rides off on his horse and kills like a whole troll army, that kind of stuff. So they should be like the human version of a vampire count. Not as powerful, but the human equivalent.
No, I absolutely agree. And that's actually like the 5th question he asked. So cool, we'll cover that. Yeah, I definitely agree. The Bretonnia, I think if you're going to give sort of a special subset of powers or something to the army, or to any army, they should go ahead and be set up like the vampire powers, in that you can take them plus gear. Because I know it annoys the crap out of me, like the ogre big names come out of your magic item requirements. And so nobody in their right mind really takes them, except occasionally the plus.
The Bretonnians did have 4 spells.
Oh, did they? What did they used to be?
They had Spiteful Glance, the Mist of Chalons, the Doom of Dal, and Beguilement of Blundell. When this was the book, very, very old.
Wow.
That was the book. That was the Bretonnia book when I started playing.
I'm looking for a copyright date. It's probably 1996.
Yep. That's awesome. So, in a new book with limited magic items, which ones of the magic items out of the current Bretonnia book do you think will make the cut into the new one?
Well, it kind of depends on what they're going to do. If they're going to give, I mean, I can see the prayer icon still coming through.
I think it's more about the virtues, right, than the items. What virtues might make it into the new book?
It might be. Well, I mean, we can deal with both questions. What virtues do you think will stay? What magic items do you think will stay?
Usually, it's like iconic stuff, like the Silver Lance will probably stay. The Sword of the Quest, those things with those big catchy names that are very symbolic. But I mean, the only thing it really comes down to is do the Bretonnians keep Heroic Killing Blow, the Virtue of the Impetuous, those 2, and maybe. That would be about it. I mean, the Virtue of Empathy to put them on foot, but we shouldn't have to pay 10 points to be on foot. We should just be able to be on foot.
Yeah. So you definitely let's get a little distracted a bit. You definitely seem to swear by the heroic killing blow virtue. Do you really see that as something that is absolutely necessary for the Bretonnians to be competitive, kind of in the game as it stands now?
Yeah, you can't take Bretonnia to any kind of serious event and not have it. How do you kill a steam tank or two steam tanks? How do you kill a Kadai destroyer? How do you kill a vampire lord? How do you kill Nagash? How do you kill, Bretonnia has very limited shooting. The Trebs, if they're lucky, get one turn to fire because you got to pray. You can only protect them with peasants, and peasants are like a fence. They're useless. And you got to have heroic killing blow because it's kind of like power perceived is power achieved. There's not a great chance that he'll kill your guy, but I mean he has the chance to one-shot anything off the board, even 12 wounds, and that's pretty that's pretty powerful and essential in the toolbox. But I mean he's not a unit slayer. You have to put him into strategic targets. If he gets stuck on slaves or something really skimpy like infantry, he's useless.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean I just asked because I don't remember if have you ever taken it, Skip, the heroic killing blow lord?
Yeah, when I field Alphonius, he has it, and the one tournament that I've been to, I took him, and I did kill a steam tank, and I did win that. I did win that first game against Empire with that killing blow. So, but I like to mix them up. With my different. If I'm fielding a different lord in the fluff, I'm going to give them a different virtue, so they're not all going to have the heroic killing blow. They should. It's just not the way I put it in the fluff.
Yeah. So I guess that's another interesting question to both of you. Right now, to my knowledge, the Bretonnians are the only ones that can actually take duplicates of the virtues or their type of thing, even though you're paying premium points for it. Do you typically find yourself doubling up on some of those virtues, or is it just kind of a one per person deal?
The only time I would double up is if we were doing the 50% lords and heroes. I debated about taking 2 lords with heroic killing blow, although the second one's 80 points. So you got to give him things like the Tress of Isolde, which will let him for 1 round hit on a 2+ to make him somewhat reliable on HKB. Because again, he gets a standing 2-up armor save and then the blessing. So the nice thing with Bretonnians, you don't need to put any real points into defensive kit. They come pretty well equipped. But the only other one I think I would spam is the Virtue of Empathy, for the ridiculous reason that we have to pay 10 points to not be on a horse. It's retarded, but those would be the only 2, really. I mean, the other ones are not really that good. They even rotted some out of the game. They just don't apply anymore 2 editions later.
Yeah. So what about you, Skip? Do you double them up typically?
The only one I've ever doubled up is the empathy one. I haven't done the heroic killing blow or anything else. And as Ant said, that's really the only thing that's worth it. If you're not going to do the heroic, why double up on some of the others? I mean, unless you really want to give your peasants a punch, that's why I put a couple paladins in there. But
if you could stack the Virtue of the Impetuous and add 2d6 to your first charge, that'd be insane. But I'm pretty sure the wording is add d6 to your first charge, so you couldn't really do that. But
see, if it worked like that, why would you even stop? Just do like 6 characters across the front. You're doing your first charge is like 7d6.
Right, and then you just cast Savage Beast in a bubble. Yeah.
And then you win. I'm gonna, before we get on to the next group of questions, I'm gonna scan sort of the comments that we're getting on the shows. We're getting a lot of them. A lot of the usual cast. Though we do welcome Nicholas Belair watching us for the first time. He's finally made it. And so Vince keys in on the why people love the Bretonnians, definitely talking about what Skip said about the romanticism in history, but as far as why they're fanatic, he says, anyone playing an 11-year-old army book is by their very nature someone who likes the underdog, and those who side with the underdogs are often fanatical. But yeah, there's a lot of just agreement with us, so I don't know that I'm going to go too deep. Though Nicholas Belair does say that the Bretts should get a lady-inspired Count Nagash in the form of monstrous infantry. I wouldn't even know what kind of monstrous infantry like Bretonnia would need.
Monsters, not beasts, infantry, so not cav and not.
That's what he says. I mean, I could see getting like some souped up, pumped up, like Clydesdale style.
You could do
Hybrid
Grail Knights on monstrous infantry bases because they're supposed to be. They're not like troll size. I guess they would be more like the infantry, the Blight Kings, because they're supposed to be hundreds of years old, touched by the lady, or maybe they touched the lady. Probably is more likely, but.
Yeah. So to get us distracted to that, the Blight Kings, is it just me or are they terrible?
They're balanced. For demons, they add non-magical attacks, which is huge. But they're infantry, which makes them balanced, because the other option is make them monstrous infantry, in which case they're broke as a joke for 40 points. So I think they made a balanced unit that is a really cool kit that you could then use as unit fillers, because, hey, pop them off, put them on a 50 mil, fill 4 unit fillers. I think they came out and they made a really nice kit, and they didn't make something broke as a joke, which for GW is a time to applaud.
Okay. So we're going to go into, Vince asked us some questions, as always. Number 1, and this is on one of my particular favorite models in the whole Bretonnian range, the Grail Reliquae. It's one of the coolest models and concepts, but other than Skip, who's a glutton for punishment, it's never seen in bat reps. What would have to change about the Grail Reliquae to make it usable and or competitive?
Boost the weapon skill. I mean, it automatically gets the ward save. The unit is real cool looking. You know, you have your own specialized people who are going to jump heroically in front of it to protect it. So you need to maybe beef up the battle pilgrims just a little bit. That would really be the only thing I change. Otherwise, I think I actually took that to that tournament. So I am a glutton for punishment.
I don't think it's a terrible item. I just think that in the generally slightly overcosted Bretonnian army book, you just wind up not putting it in. Like, from the dwarf perspective, the flame cannon is awesome. But after I take my 2 cannons and my 2 organ guns, there's not points to take the flame cannon. So you know what I'm talking about. That's the flame cannon for the dwarves is the Grail Reliquae for the Bretonnia. It's
really nice, and it just often does not get into the list.
Right, it doesn't find a home, and it's great for anchoring a flank, but you're talking about a very slow-moving unit in a very fast-moving army. So unless you go peasant heavy, it's left at home in the rear with the gear. Otherwise, you got to hold the knights back for several turns, which is suicide against a lot of these other armies that can alpha strike you. Have it move up, engage the enemy, and then you can flank charge, which we're talking 3 or 4 turns down the road, especially since we never go first.
I can definitely see that. I think one of the things that might make it a little bit better is to make it like one of the new big chariots. Make it the equivalent of the Cauldron of Blood for the Dark Elves. Maybe put a little bit more speed on it because it's being pulled by Bretonnia horses or something. I mean, make it speed 8. It's not going to be that much slower, and if you give it a good benefit that'll kind of bubble outward and hit the back end of the lances, that's all you really need. And it could be a great centerpiece that I think Bretonnia right now is kind of lacking.
You could make it like the War Altar, and a Cauldron, put it in a peasant unit, make it the War Altar, give it some bound spells that could improve the blessing by 1, could make a unit, ethereal for a turn, for at least movement or something like that. You could do a lot of fun bound stuff with it, and it just needs to go on a slightly larger base, like the chariot base. But I mean, you could have it definitely do that. That'd be really cool.
That's a good idea.
Okay. All right. The second question goes into the sort of dark change to Bretonnia, and I think we kind of all voted that that's likely not to happen. But his third question is that the ogres have the noblars, the orcs have the goblins, and the Brets have peasants. What new unit or war machine or anything could be made with the peasants that would be appropriate in flavor and maybe give power to a peasant-only army? And he says, note, it could also be something like a peasant hero that can inspire men-at-arms with something like the Tomb King's My Will Be Done style thing.
I think if you add a peasant hero, something like that, I think that's a nifty idea. But I would give them an ability like just give them stubborn, because they're going to fight for that peasant hero until they can't. So I think something like that would be awesome.
You can give them a squire. I mean, Bretonnia took a really weird turn after this book, but I mean, back in this day, anyone could become a knight if they did the task that had to be done for that particular town or village. There were some high-level ranking peasants in here that were actually heroes. I think they were squires or something to that effect. So, I mean, you could give them that, but I mean, a knight on foot with the virtue of empathy, why can't we have a warrior priest type guy that has some bound level spells that are on foot, and he's kind of like the warrior monk for Bretonnia, and you put him in a unit, and he doesn't even need to give stubborn. You can give him the crown of command if you really wanted to, but a warrior priest-esque thing. But the issue is, how much are you going to make Bretonnia more like the Empire? That's always the buttressing point.
Mm-hmm. I actually think it would be kind of cool to give Knight Lances an upgrade, like a Patsy-style squire running behind the lance, something akin to the Lookout Noblars out of the Ogres, that you might just like take as a unit upgrade to a lance that gives them some sort of effect. I don't know, maybe give them the opportunity to like switch out weapons or something. Maybe have like lances in close combat and then switch to great weapons once you grind or something like that. Just something to change them up a little bit. Maybe help out with that grind a bit.
Well, I think they need to fix Cav in general, because the way war games work with Cav, no Cav would charge and then just sit there. They would either plow through or they would withdraw, historically speaking. So, I mean, the whole Cav mechanic in wargaming is kind of bad. But you figure they charge on the lance, so you figure on the turn in which they charge, they can use their lance or another option, but you could give them cavalry hammers as an upgrade. Gives them +1 strength all the time. Morning stars on their belt, because once they charge with the lance, the knight would discard it if he stood in the fight, and he would pull out his sword that gives him +1 strength, or his cavalry hammer, or his morning star, or whatever. And I think that would help the Bretonnian knights with the grind.
I could see that. The other thing I thought would kind of be cool is to have a hedge wizard. Like a peasant hero who was like a level 1 of some lore, and just a level 1 wizard that hangs out with the peasants.
The fan book has that. They have like a priestess of Shalila or something, some word like that. But she's a wizard.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I haven't actually looked at the fan book. Have you read through the whole fan book, Anthony?
I did one game with it where I played Andrew, and he took the pirate fan book, which was kind of funny. But they have some ridiculous stuff. But they had the Hippogriff Knights, which were basically flying demigods with a lower armor save, with the blessing though. They had Knights on Foot, which could take I think flail, so +2 strength the first round of combat. And they had the blessing, and they had heavy armor. They had that priestess. They had the warrior priest-esque knight on foot, like the paladin they called him, and that was the real paladin. They gave him just more options, but again, it felt very Empire-esque too. Mm-hmm. Just with the Bretonnian Cav overlay, and if at the end times is going to allow a lot of allying, the last thing GW is going to do is carve out everything in the Bretonnian-esque fashion that the Empire already does. They'll just say buy a warrior priest and stick him in your men-at-arms, as opposed to giving us a paladin that does the same thing as a warrior priest.
Yeah, I can see that. I think I was just curious because I had only seen I read through the Amazon and the Halfling ones, and I thought they were really surprisingly well done for just fan-made stuff.
They put more work in than GW does. They really, I mean, that stuff took years to make. It was no joke. There was whole like councils that came together of people. I know this because Andrew helped on the pirate book. So, I mean, they really went all out.
That's cool. So, again, I guess we'll tap into a little bit of your tournament mood. What is the general tournament opinion on that kind of stuff? Is it pretty much just get the fuck out of the room, or is there anything open to those kind of fan books being allowed?
Not even acknowledged. It took many years to get Chaos Warriors allowed, not Chaos Dwarves allowed. So I mean, I never heard eye or ear of anyone allowing a fan book. But I'm in the Northeast too, which is also a heavily comped environment, so they don't allow stuff in the whole book of the Dark Elves. So I think it'd be cool one time if they just did that, like a store did that, maybe as a campaign thing, just for fun.
See, if I ever ran a tournament, that I would allow all that stuff. Because I gotta say, the kind of messy conversation on your website or on your YouTube today did give me kind of an interesting idea if I ever decided to run a tournament, how I would do it. As one of the people who was being very grumpy today made some comment about, well, what if the community actually cared for fluff like they do for painting and actually gave best fluff awards that went into overall? I think that would be awesome. Like, you got to submit a story with your army list before and just go totally fluff with it, and it would be just an absurd tournament that I would have a hell of a lot of fun running.
Right. Just justify how you're taking the witch brew or the sacrificial dagger. How you spinning that story?
Or explain to me why you have 2 of the 6 steam tanks in the Empire.
Right. How'd you get them to both start today?
My dude's super rich and can buy anything.
Yeah, but that would get you like a 1.
Yeah.
You know, that's the whole point, and that would be a nice 4th dimension to grand tournament play in terms of points, and would really spit on their head best overall. But then, I'd commission you, Mittierim, and then I would be cheating. So we can't. Can't have that.
Or lazy. You could just be lazy. Yeah, God, that all day, man. It was like 10 hours of that shit. For those of you who want to know what we're talking about, I'm not going to call anyone out, but go take a look at the comments section of Anthony's last post. There's a little brouhaha going about his most recent blue table painting-esque comment or video. So, okay, and actually, while I got you here, let's go ahead and shoot the pink elephant in the room. Blue table painting seems to be something that will just, like, start a bar fight in this community. What do you think it is about them that gets everybody's blood boiling so much, Ant?
Sean, if I was in charge of a sales division in my gigantic company that I work for, I'd hire Sean because he could sell sand in the desert. He's a very good car salesman. He's got a great sales pitch, and they spin it to that they create high level quality, and they don't. And it's really just no one has a problem with the quality they're putting out. They have a problem with the pricing, but more importantly, because the pricing's up front, so that's your decision. They have a problem with the perception that they sell one thing but they deliver something totally different. And I don't think people like being double crossed and lied to, and then being told to shut up because we're right and you're not.
See, that I find it interesting that you say that you would hire him because I am actually in sales. And it's really what I do. Sean would last about an hour and a half in my company.
Well, I know you said you did the retail sales. I'm talking like corporate to corporate sales, like big gigantic deals. I think it would be even worse in that situation. Oh, we lie to the customer all the time. We got to talk. We promise and don't deliver. We're 2 years behind on some delivery dates, and I work for a Fortune 10 company. When it's 2 big companies working together, and it's like $100 million deal. We overpromise and underdeliver constantly. So Sean would be perfect. Half of our escalation issues are as the sales reps promise something to the customer we physically cannot deliver, like internet on the moon or something like that, like just crazy stuff.
Oh Jesus. And I mean, okay, so definitely you got your point you made is why folks who are anti-BTP get up in arms, and I totally understand that. I mean, nothing more than shitty customer service and being lied to piss me off. But it seems at the same time that they're doing all this and making these people angry, they're creating these like super fanatic fans that are willing to go to bat for them about anything. I mean, what is it, in your opinion, that's getting these people high energy on both sides?
YouTube is the cult of personality. It's that simple. Like we said with Malorian's comment before, people will now believe that they're cheating if somebody gets their army commission painted for no other reason than the statement is baseless, but he said it. You know, if I say something just because I said it, people may just believe it because I said it. People are very, cult of personality on YouTube. It's not so much about the quality of the comment, but who says what. It's like the PewDiePie effect for YouTube. So, I mean, they've been around for forever. Sean has the gift of gab. He could outshine Clinton in a debate just with his gift of gab and personality, and that's very sellable. And for many years, he's cultivated how hard it is to operate in this industry, and understand all the turnover, and I got to feed my family, and lays it on, the sob story. And he's been doing that for years. He's been cultivating that field for years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like I originally wanted to kind of support him and give him some benefit of the doubt, and then I actually requested a BTP price sheet on one of the commissions that Alicia did, and the price difference just blew my mind, and I could not even finish putting that thought together. I mean, seeing what he's doing for just basically dry brush, and I mean you've seen Alicia's work. You've got some of it. You're getting more before too much longer, and I mean considering we're charging less than 40% what they are for dry brushing and maybe a little base work, is just absolutely blew my mind.
I think Sean has the right niche. I think he just sells it wrong. Sean's niche is you want your whole army painted right now, send us the whole thing, we'll get it all done, and we'll crank it out to you. That's what Sean does, but you're going to suffer on the quality, and you're going to pay a premium for that. Because the one mom-and-pop shops like your wife couldn't take my whole Skaven army and do it in 6 or 8 weeks. BTP could, but the quality's going to suffer. And also there's a big risk where painters walk out on you. That's why I'll never give anybody who's a one-man operation more than a small piece of my army to do at a time, because life happens. Where BTP will be there. They will just throw more painters at it. And you sacrifice all that for quality. And Sean should just say, look, we do slapstick painting that looks good from 3 feet away, and that's it. And you're going to pay a premium for it, but we're going to get it to you in 6 or 8 weeks, regardless of the size of the project. And here's the pricing that reflects that. His pricing doesn't reflect that, and neither does his sales pitch. That's where people go, you're snake oil salesing me. That's the issue.
Right. Of course, let's be honest. If he did just say that and that was his sales pitch, I don't think he'd get any business.
Well, he said to people, this looks good as a group from across the board, but it's the way he says it. He has a very good gift of gab, where I would just say it looks like crap if you look at it from closer than 3 feet. It's just the way he articulates the messages. He's a very good salesman, like I said.
Yeah. Did you see Skaven and AZ's video today where he broke down sort of their whole customer service bit and the explanation of the different levels and stuff? I thought that was freaking excellent. And
he made a video?
Yeah, he did.
I didn't see that.
Go check it out, because he literally goes line by line through the blue table paperwork sort of explanation of their service. And
Skaven AZ did that?
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, he gets all of his stuff pro-painted, so I think he has a big stake in it, the lazy cheater that he is.
Yeah. Friggin' bastard.
In case you watch this game at AZ, I got nothing but love for you, brother. Just keeping the hate rolling. I was trolled for 10 hours today. I gotta get rid of it somewhere.
Yeah, I think all of this is just good community service because, like I said, if you want a lawyer or a general contractor or a plumber or mechanic, that information is out there in oodles and oodles and oodles, and you can type it into Google and say, how much should I pay a plumber typically? And it'll give you breakdown by where you live in the country, the going rate for a plumber to do whatever service you need them to do. Painting commissions, I mean, what do you charge for art? I don't know, whatever I feel it's worth. You know, people will pay $1 million for someone who literally shit on a canvas. Literally did that, if it's worth it to them. And the rule of business is, as much as I can charge and get away with, that's what I'm going to charge. So it's a very subjective field. There's no Angie's List for it. There's no barometer for it. And most painting services don't last more than a year or two because most small businesses don't. And when they're one-man operations, burnout happens very quickly. So the only barometer is Blue Table Painting or someplace in China that you have no information on, has no public facing outside of eBay. So we're all kind of left to our own devices. So giving this critical feedback and explaining to people this is what you will get for that price, I think that's a good barometer for the community to be aware of.
I absolutely agree. I mean, and for you being in business too, it's not like you're just ranting on this sucks, this product is terrible, but you're giving a bigger and a better point of view from the business side, kind of why the company's doing what it's doing, and I think you strangely enough for you involved in this, you've lacked your usual rage, and it's been very clear and concise breakdown of what's going on.
Well, I know the trolls are out there, and I've been out in YouTube long enough to know not to anger the trolls because they'll eat you. Like when I called the dwarf army boring and the dwarves almost kicked in my door.
Oh.
That was still the most boring dwarf army I've ever seen. Now that I play them, I can say unequivocally that was the most boring dwarf army ever. But I have an organ gun now, so now no one can kick down my door. I have two. But one for the front door, one for the back door. No flame cannon. I couldn't afford it. Didn't make the cut, but
yeah.
See, I find it funny you say that because usually when I was playing my dwarves and I was building the list, the flame cannon was like the first war machine I would put in.
And then it would blow up.
Yeah, like you roll on the misfire chart at a -2. So there's a 50% chance if you misfire it explodes, unless you take the rune of forging.
No, he takes
No, man,
rune of forging on it.
I took the rune of forging on it and kept blowing the damn thing up.
Oh.
It's beautiful the level of destruction he can cause to his own army if he uses black powder.
And then you look at the magma cannon and you just cry because the magma cannon shoots into the enemy deployment zone turn 1.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So actually that's another, since we'll kind of steer back to Bretonnia. As a Bretonian player, Anthony, and Skip, you can answer this one too. When you sit down across from whatever player you're playing, what unit, war machine, whatever in Warhammer do you sit down and just go, oh shit, I'm facing X, and it just fills you with that gut feeling of dread?
All of them. Bretonnia is that bad. You fear everything.
Okay.
I kid you not. I'm afraid of everything. Steam tanks, Kadai destroyers, saber tusks even, because I don't have an answer for them. Everything terrifies the hell out of me. Anything that stands between me and the charge I need to get is terrifying.
So you're just afraid of chaff. How about you, Skip? Anything different?
Gyrocopters.
So he's afraid of chaff too.
Yeah.
Right.
Some chaff I can handle, but I have yet to figure out how to handle gyrocopters or the gyro bomber.
Well, the only way Bretonnia handles chaff is peasant bowmen, which suck. Mounted yeomen, which suck even more. Lone paladins can handle chaff, but then you're taking lone paladins. I mean, that's the other nice thing about the paladin wall is you can shoot a paladin out of the unit and charge a piece of chaff on its own and leave the lance alone. but not going first. I mean, people are like, that's not that big of a deal. I lose the roll to go first all the time. It's like, no, dude. Your opponent knows that you're not going first.
Yeah.
And they are going to deploy and vanguard in such a way that is going to screw you. And if you don't believe me, just tell your opponent one time you're going to win the roll to go first by default and see how different they will set their whole army up.
Yeah, I can see that. So we'll flip this question on its head for Michael. Michael, what do you feel is your best weapon against Bretonnia?
Anything that has, like, cannons, my war machines with the dwarves will eat the knight units. Because I can put my cannons will hit a demon that's hiding behind ogres 2 inches behind it, and I'll put it into that demon. I can hit just about anything with a cannon.
What about organ guns?
Organ guns, yes, they're highly effective too. I can pump out enough shots with them. But cannons tend to be my bread and butter, as I can aim those things like nobody else. And if you've got 9 knights and I put a cannon down the line and you're down to 6, how effective are they going to be when they hit my units?
Yeah, but I mean the organ gun will just eat the whole knight unit.
Well, yeah, but I don't like to do that to skip too much.
Thanks.
I mean, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, I gotta say, my new most favorite weapon against the Knights of Bretonnia is actually the Noblar Scrap Launcher. I mean, a freaking Strength 3 Stone Thrower with Killing Blow is actually pretty freaking useful against those guys.
Actually, Noblar Trappers are incredibly effective against Bretonnia.
Yes.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Woods,
Yes.
fences, Curse of Honor here, marshes, swamps.
Speaking of fences, we had an amazing charge in a game that Skip and Nicole played yesterday. There's no battle report for it, so I'll go ahead and say it. He charges 3 units, 2 units of elves and a lion chariot into a wall that a group of Coldwood Knights were holding. Both units of elves failed. The chariot was the only thing that succeeded. It hit the wall, failed dangerous terrain, took 6 wounds.
I've lost whole Grail Knight units to the woods. Just marching through the woods. Well, a unit of Grail Knights is like 6 or 9, and then you roll like 5 ones.
Dang.
Jesus.
Well, don't feel bad, because during that game I also blew up my wizard turn 1 to take out some what are the Dark Elf ones, Skip?
What?
The
fires? The Doomfires.
Brolocks, the bros.
Brolocks.
Yeah, lost my wizard turn 1 to take them out. On
Really?
3 nights. Not even worth it.
Just because you mention it every turn, I don't remember that happening.
It was so bad. And then he killed Sir Reginald. That was messed up.
Mm-hmm.
The bird had to die.
No.
Okay, that actually...
The bird.
The mention of the Brolocks brings me with, I guess, what'll be one final question since we're over the hour mark. Let's just say that the Bretonnians in the next book got a fast cab unit of damsels on horses that worked like the Brolocks or the Sisters of Slaughter. If you had to choose 2 spells for them to have from what Bretonnia normally gets access to, what would they be?
Dwellers. Just let's go
Likely
full
of not
hog.
occurring?
We got the bros, we got to get the galas. Dwellers and Comet. Just ruin the whole game.
That would, I would say we would allow that only if they cast the models so that the chicks are sitting on it just like this the whole way.
Well, that's what the bros do.
I guess, but I mean, you're not even trying, Ant. I mean,
well, Curse of Honor here is not terrible. I mean, that's what the Sisters of the Thorn have. Mm-hmm. So you don't want to do regrowth would be awesome. Regrowth would make a lot of sense for them.
Mm-hmm.
And then what else do they get? They get Heaven. So maybe you want to give them some kind of magic missile. Maybe Awakening the Wood. Give them Awakening the Wood and regrowth.
Mm-hmm.
There.
right. What about you, Skip? What do you think?
Yeah, I was thinking almost the same thing. I mean, maybe give. I was thinking maybe if you could use it to buff other units, maybe give them like, was it Earthblood, and just have it affect another unit. And then also give them a magic missile. Something like more of a buff thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anything you think, Michael?
I still like the idea of giving them comets and dwellers.
See, I actually would like both of mine would be out of heavens. What I would want to give them is chain lightning, and what is it, that spell Wind Blast or something that lets them push a unit a little bit?
You just want to make them completely useless.
Not.
Wind Blast?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be awesome for them to like run up around the flank, just like Wind Blast somebody out of the way, and then bounce lightning down the line. I think it would look cool.
Chain lightning, yes, but no one would ever cast Wind Blast. That's like Shield of Thorns on the Sisters. No one ever cast that useless crap.
I like Wind Blast as a spell. Of course, I'm the same guy who always saves points for his Hurricanum to do the Storm of Shemtek, so...
Yo, dude, that thing one time turned a Black Orc unit around that I was fielding and cost me the game.
Really?
I lost the charge, and then I had to spend a turn swift reforming, and then I got charged.
That's amazing.
That's all you want is the spin around version. Who cares about the stone throwers? Spin the unit around.
All right. Well, I think I'm gonna go and look through the comments one more time because I think we made it through all of our questions for the day. Let me get one. God, I wish YouTube would actually like put these comments in the right order and not just randomly move me around.
It's free. That's what you get for free.
I'm an American. I can complain about anything I want to. William Page says the Bretts need to be given armored grizzly bears for their mounted cavalry.
Dude,
what do you say to
should
that,
have gotten
Michael?
grizzly bears. That's all
I'm sorry,
wanted.
what?
William Page says that the Bretts need to get armored grizzly bears for their monstrous cavalry.
No, the dwarves need that.
Well, we've decided that the dwarves don't get anything nice because somebody at GW actually has a hatred for Michael specifically, and they know that's what he wanted, so they've decided that that's never going to happen as long as he's playing dwarves.
Dwarves are a balanced book that win GTs. I don't know why everyone hates them.
I love the dwarves, frankly. I don't know why everybody has a hate on for them either. Maybe it's because they're better than everyone.
Well, other than that, there's just some more complaints about BTP, and I don't want to get into that because I don't want to turn this whole thing into a bash BTP because, frankly, all the other videos going on are doing that way better than I could ever possibly do. So, anybody want to kind of put out any closing thoughts about Bretonnia to wrap us up?
I want a book that I can actually hurt somebody when I smack them upside the head with. Give me a hardback book. That's all I want.
Yeah, of course, probably at the rate they're going, you're probably looking minimum February before that's even going to happen. It's sad to say. So anything out of you, Ant, before we wrap this up?
I think I've said plenty today. I'm fatigued from this morning.
Yeah, that was definitely if you haven't seen them yet, go do the run on everybody's BTP videos because they're worth watching. Regardless of what side you're on, it's good. More information is better information. So, all right. Well, thank you, Anthony. Before I forget about it. We got to announce the contest winners, or the contest finalists.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm so sorry for almost forgetting that. So for you guys, first of all, we wanted to thank everybody who participated. It's always fun seeing what you guys come up with for fluff ideas. So we have come up to the 3 finalists, and these finalists are going to be presented to my wife, and she is going to pick the winner primarily based on whatever fluff kind of inspires her the most and gets her interested in making a banner for them. So first finalist we got is Mitch Cowan, who is MC1 Gamer. And I'm not going to go into the fluff now because we're going to go deep into the fluff of that they wrote on whoever is the winner. But he has an army, the Knights of the Black Rose. It's a Muslin theme Bretonnian army, and he's definitely put an awful lot of work into it. They've got a really awesome kind of gold and black theme, and it's definitely cool. I like Muslin, so it's definitely a good bit of fluff, and good luck to you. Congratulations for being one of our finalists. Number 2, we have Andrew, and I'm looking your last name. Andrew McKay, who has presented us as his unit, Skin-Crawler, the Mighty Goblin Night Boss, who leads a unit of renowned goblins known as the Skin Strippers to annihilate the dwarves by skinning them and feeding them to squigs. Guess who did not pick that one?
It's not a difficult answer.
So absolutely great work, and my wife will be making her decision sometime this week, and we'll probably end up announcing it next week. And number 3, our third finalist, is Celt of Kurnow, and sorry to totally be mispronouncing that. I'm almost certain. And his unit, I thought his was very interesting because he presented his fluff unit as a goblin doom diver known as the Sky Spies, and under the command of Morbid the Navigator McCloudcutter. And this is the oldest surviving doom diver artillery, who now trains the Sky Spies in how to survive being a doom diver. So I thought that was some excellent fluff. We definitely, again, thank you guys for contributing, and my wife will be making her decision, and we will be announcing whoever the winner is on next week's show. And to give you guys kind of a heads up for next week, we are going to do another army-based show on the vampire counts, and we are going to have Whoopi Womp come and hang out with us and be our guest, as the vampire counts were his first army, and we're going to chat about those. So once again, thank you, Ant, for coming on and jawing with us for an hour and a half or so.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. And anything anyone wants to say as a goodbye? Otherwise, I'll just kill it and we'll be on our way.
Giant eagles are tasty.
I don't know why everybody has a hard-on for killing my damn bird. I
told you.
One thing in each army, and you guys want to kill it.
I told you, I'm just a completist. I want to kill it once with each of my armies, then I'll back off. All right, well, I guess we'll go and privately drive Michael nuts. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next week.